Welcome to my story. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe, and your support means the world.
Everyone thought Zola Adeyemi was the luckiest woman in Cape Town. At just 29, she lived in a stunning penthouse in Bantry Bay, where the floor-to-ceiling windows showed the endless blue Atlantic Ocean. Every morning she stood there with her coffee, watching the waves crash against the rocks far below. It looked like a perfect life, and from the outside it was. She was married to Kabelo Dlamini, one of South Africa's youngest tech billionaires. He was charming, confident, and admired by everyone. People saw his success, but they didn't see Zola's sacrifices. Before the private jets and magazine covers, there were nights when they couldn't even afford proper office furniture. Zola was there through all of it. She helped him plan, think, and build his company step by step. She believed in him when nobody else did. She even gave up her own career so he could chase his dreams. Kabelo always told her, "None of this would exist without you," and she believed him. But there was one person who never accepted her. Kabelo's father, Themba Dlamini. From the first day his eyes were cold. He never smiled at her, never welcomed her. One evening during a family dinner he looked directly at her and said in a calm, sharp voice, "She's not one of us." The words cut deep. The room went silent. But Zola forced a small smile and stayed quiet. Because she loved her husband. Because she trusted her marriage. Because she believed love would protect her. She had no idea. Her perfect life was already built on a lie. One night everything changed. Zola came home earlier than expected from a charity gala. She had a slight headache and all she wanted was to change her dress and rest in Kabelo's arms. Usually the penthouse was full of life, soft music playing, city lights glowing through the windows, and the comfort of knowing she was not alone. But that night, it was too quiet. The silence felt strange. She slowly walked inside, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. She was about to call Kabelo's name when she heard voices coming from his private office. She stopped. The door was slightly open. She wasn't trying to listen, but then she heard a voice that made her freeze. It was Themba. His tone was cold. "Serious," he said, "after the shares transfer, divorce her." Zola's heart stopped. Her body went completely still. For a second she thought she heard wrong. But then Themba spoke again. "She owns 40%. We need her signature first." Zola felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet. 40%. Her shares. Her husband answered. His voice was calm, emotionless. Not the man she knew. "She trusts me," Kabelo said quietly. "She'll sign anything." Zola covered her mouth with her hand to stop herself from making a sound. Her breathing became heavy. Her eyes filled with tears. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. The man who held her at night, the man who told her he loved her, was planning this? Planning to take everything? Planning to leave her? She realized something in that moment that broke her completely. Their marriage wasn't love. It was a plan. A business move. He was never his partner. She was never his forever. He was just a target. Zola didn't wait to hear more. She slowly stepped back from the door, her heart beating so loud she was afraid they would hear it. Her legs felt weak, like they could collapse any second. She walked quietly down the hallway, holding her breath, trying to act normal, even though her whole world had just shattered. They had no idea she knew. She reached the bedroom and went straight into the bathroom. The moment the door closed behind her, her body gave up. Her hands started shaking badly. She grabbed the edge of the sink to stop herself from falling. She looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. Her marriage was fake. His love was fake. Her future was fake. Everything was a lie. A broken sound escaped her throat and she quickly covered her mouth. She couldn't let them hear her. She couldn't let them know. Tears rolled down her face, one after another. She slid down slowly until she was sitting on the cold bathroom floor. Her expensive dress spread around her like it belonged to someone else. Memories flashed in her mind. His smile. His promises. His voice saying, "I love you. Always." She cried silently, her shoulders shaking, her heart breaking in a way she had never felt before. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Then something changed. Her tears slowed. Her breathing became steady. The pain was still there. But something else was rising. Clarity. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and slowly stood up. She looked at herself in the mirror again. But this time, she wasn't the same woman. The sadness in her eyes was gone, replaced by something colder, stronger, focused. They thought she was weak. They thought she was blind. They thought she would sign everything and walk away with nothing. They were wrong. Very wrong. She leaned closer to the mirror and whispered softly, her voice calm and dangerous. If they want war. She paused. Her jaw tightened. I'll finish it. They forgot one very important thing. Zola wasn't weak. They saw her as the quiet wife, the supportive woman who stood behind her husband, the one who smiled at events and said nothing about business. But they forgot the truth. She didn't just stand behind the company. She helped build it. Before the investors, before the fame, before the billions. It was just the two of them, and her ideas. She remembered the long nights sitting beside Cabello with her laptop, helping him write business plans. She remembered creating their first budgets, managing their first accounts and fixing problems when everything was falling apart. She knew everything. Every account number. Every password. Every hidden asset they thought nobody else knew. She wasn't just his wife, he was the silent partner. And legally, she was the co-owner. That night, after the tears were gone and her mind became clear, she walked back into the bedroom quietly. Cabello was still in his office with his father. They were probably still planning her destruction. She sat down on the edge of the bed and slowly opened her laptop. Her heart started beating faster again. This time not from pain, from fear, from risk, from power. She stared at the screen for a few seconds, knowing that once she started, there was no going back. Her fingers moved to the keyboard. She typed the company's private banking website. Her hands were shaking. She paused, took a deep breath, then entered the first password. Access granted. Her stomach tightened. He went deeper. Second password. Access granted. Now she could see everything. All the accounts. All the money. All the secrets. Her hands trembled again. Not because she was weak, but because she finally understood the truth. They were planning to erase her. No. She had the power to stop them. She swallowed slowly and kept going. Zola stared at the screen, her eyes moving quickly as she opened file after file. Then she saw something that made her stop breathing. A document. It was dated, tomorrow. Her chest tightened as she opened it. It was a share transfer schedule. Her name was on it. Her signature line was empty. Below it there was another document already prepared. Divorce papers. Her hands started shaking again. She scrolled down, her heart pounding louder and louder. There was a note from Themba's legal team. Completion expected within 72 hours. 72 hours. That was all she had left. 72 hours before they took everything. Before they threw her away like she meant nothing. Before they erased her from the empire she helped build. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. This wasn't the time to cry. This was the time to act. She looked at the numbers in the accounts. Millions. Money she helped create. Money that legally belonged to her too. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. Her mind screamed at her to stop. This was dangerous. This would change everything. This could start a war. But doing nothing would destroy her. She whispered to herself, they started this. Her breathing became slow and steady. Her decision was made. She opened a protected holding account. One that was registered in her own name. One they didn't know about. Her finger trembled as she typed the transfer amount. Millions. She paused for one last second. This was the most dangerous decision of her life. She pressed confirm. The screen processed for a moment. Her heart felt like it would explode. Transfer successful. It was done. She didn't steal it. It was hers. Her legal ownership. Her protection. Her future. For the first time that night she leaned back in her chair. Not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to be destroyed. The next morning felt unreal. Sunlight filled the penthouse like nothing had happened. The ocean outside was calm, peaceful, beautiful. But inside Zola, everything was different. She heard footsteps behind her. Cabello. She turned around slowly, forcing herself to look normal. He smiled at her. That same familiar smile she once trusted with her whole heart. Good morning, my love, he said softly. Before she could react, he leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Just like he always did. Her body froze for a second. Last night, those same lips planned to destroy her. But she didn't show it. She smiled back gently. Good morning, she replied. She watched him carefully as he walked around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't betrayed her. Like he hadn't lied to her for years. In that moment she realized something painful. She wasn't looking at her husband anymore. She was looking at a stranger. Oh, worse. An enemy. After breakfast he walked toward her holding a folder. Her heart beat faster. This was it. He handed it to her casually. Just some company documents, he said. Routine things. I need your signature. Routine. He lied so easily. Zola took the papers calmly and looked at them, even though she already knew what they were. Share transfer documents. She looked up at him. He was watching her closely, waiting, expecting her to sign, trusting that she was still the same woman. She gave him a soft, sweet smile. Of course, she said gently. His shoulders relaxed. He smiled back, satisfied. He thought he had already won. She placed the papers beside her. I'll sign them later, she added. He nodded, completely unaware. But the truth was, he would never sign them. Not now. Not ever. Because the power had already shifted. And he didn't even know it yet. 3 days later, the empire began to crumble. At Cabello's company, everything was chaos. Screens flashed red with alerts. Numbers missing, accounts empty. Staff ran frantically from office to office, trying to figure out what was happening. Rumors spread like wildfire. Nobody could believe it. Themba Dlamini was furious. His face was red, veins showing on his forehead. He slammed his fist on the conference table, knocking papers everywhere. How is this possible? He roared, his voice echoing through the office. Cabello, usually so calm and controlled, looked shocked. His hands shook as he scrolled through reports on his tablet. All the accounts, the money, gone, he whispered, unable to comprehend it. They called in the legal team, auditors, and financial experts. They investigated every transaction, every hidden account, every single detail. And then, the truth hit them like a storm. Zola had transferred everything. Every account, every cent she legally owned was now in her control. Protected, safe, untouchable. Panic spread in the office. Employees whispered, lawyers scrambled, investors called non-stop. And in the middle of it all, Cabello and Themba realized the woman they had underestimated, the quiet, supportive wife, was the one behind it all. Without a word, they left the office, their faces pale, their pride crushed. They rushed home to confront her. They imagined her terrified, panicked, begging for mercy. They imagined a weak, broken woman they could intimidate. But the moment they stepped into the penthouse, everything changed. Zola was standing by the window looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. The morning light highlighted her calm, powerful presence. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting theirs. Not afraid, not nervous, not a trace of weakness. For the first time, they didn't see the wife they tried to manipulate. They didn't see the girl they thought they could control. They saw a queen, a woman in control, a woman who had taken everything from them, not out of revenge but out of justice. And in that moment, Themba and Cabello realized they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Themba's face twisted with rage. How dare you, he shouted, his voice cracking with anger. Every word felt like it could shatter the walls of the penthouse. Cabello's jaw tightened. He took a step forward, eyes blazing, but even he couldn't hide the panic creeping in. Zola didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply stood there, calm, composed, every inch the woman they had once tried to break. She met their eyes steadily, the ocean light reflecting off her face, showing strength they had never seen before. And then she spoke. I heard everything, she said quietly. The words hung in the air. Themba froze. Cabello's hand tightened around the edge of the sofa. Silence swallowed the room, deep and heavy, the kind of silence that makes every heart pound. Their secret exposed. Their plan failed. Their victim was now the victor. They had underestimated her. They thought she was naive, weak, dependent. They thought love made her blind. But Zola had listened. She had waited. She had acted. And now she was untouchable. Cabello opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Themba's face turned pale, veins throbbing at his temples. All the power they had tried to wield over her, all the control, evaporated in a single moment. Zola took a slow step forward. Every movement was deliberate, every breath steady. She let them see what they had created. A woman they thought would bend, but who had instead risen. You thought I wouldn't notice, she whispered almost softly, that I wouldn't fight back, that I would just sign away everything and disappear. You made a mistake. Your biggest mistake. Themba's shoulders slumped. Cabello's hands dropped to his sides. Their empire trembled, not from the money, but from the realization that the woman they had tried to crush had outsmarted them completely. Zola didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just stood there, calm, cold, and more powerful than they could ever imagine. Because sometimes, the quietest voice is the deadliest. Zola didn't wait. She filed for divorce first. Not because she wanted to hurt Cabello but because she needed freedom. She needed control of her life and her future. And legally she had every right. Her shares, her money, her company influence. Everything was hers. She had built it, she had protected it, and now she owned it. Once the papers were filed, she left the penthouse in Bantry Bay behind. The place that had once felt like home now smelled of lies and betrayal. She didn't look back. She moved to Sandton, Johannesburg, a city buzzing with ambition and opportunity. There she started her own company. She didn't need anyone's permission, anyone's approval. She built it from the ground up just like she had with Cabello. But this time everything was hers. Her business grew fast, faster than anyone expected. Investors came knocking, journalists wanted interviews, and competitors couldn't keep up. Zola became a powerful CEO, a force in the industry. She made decisions decisively, spoke with authority, and led with intelligence and vision. People watched, impressed and a little intimidated. The media gave her a title she had never asked for, but deserved anyway: the woman who outsmarted an empire. Headlines flashed her name across the country. Stories of betrayal, courage, and brilliance filled the news. She didn't hide. She showed the world what it meant to rise above, to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Meanwhile, Cabello's company began to crumble. Without Zola's sharp mind, her strategic thinking, and her knowledge of every detail, the empire started falling apart. Deals fell through, accounts were mismanaged, and investors began to panic. His charm and influence couldn't fix what she had protected and grown. Every day the contrast became clearer. Zola was thriving, respected, untouchable. Cabello was losing, desperate and exposed. The empire they had built together, which he thought he could control alone, began to collapse without her. Zola didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Her success spoke louder than any words. She had won, not just against the betrayal but against a system that had tried to silence her. And in the quiet moments she smiled. She had taken her life back, and nothing, not money, power or lies, could take it away. 5 years had passed and Zola Adeyemi had changed the game entirely. She arrived at a luxury business summit in Nairobi, Kenya, dressed in a tailored suit that radiated power. Every step she took drew eyes. Not because she wanted attention but because people couldn't ignore someone who had built an empire from sheer intelligence and courage. She was a billionaire now, untouchable, unstoppable, a force no one could challenge. The room was buzzing with executives, investors and media, but her gaze locked on one familiar figure: Cabello Dlamini. He looked older, worn, his confidence cracked. The sparkle in his eyes had dimmed. His empire had fallen without her, and now the weight of regret and loss was written across his face. For a moment he noticed her and froze. A flicker of hope, or perhaps apology, passed through his eyes. But Zola didn't stop. She didn't glance back. She didn't speak. Words weren't necessary. Every success she had built, every deal she had closed, every empire she now commanded was her answer. He had thought he could destroy her, control her, erase her. He had thought she would bend, break or beg. But she had risen above it all. Zola walked past him with the confidence of a queen, her head held high, her steps steady. Around her people whispered, cameras clicked and deals were made. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the man she once loved and who had tried to betray her. She didn't need to speak. She didn't need to gloat. Her silence was louder than any words. Her calm, unstoppable presence said it all. And in that silence, she had delivered her greatest revenge. Cabello had lost everything. She had lost nothing. Zola stepped into the room, fully herself, fully untouchable, and the world took notice.